Do we want to go through and kind of introduce ourselves and, mention how many hives we had and how everybody fared this winter so far?
Hey, Jason here. So I had 15 going into the winter, and I lost one. Was kind of expecting it, but I'm thinking I might lose another one. But we'll see.
Well, you've been great then.
I had a great mentor to thank for that.
Well, I lost 3. Got 7 left, and I've put out some frames of honey that I had left over from last year, and some of the frames that were in the hives that I lost. I saw that one of them, the cluster was probably only about 50 bees, so she hadn't laid enough for keeping warm in the winter. And so everybody's stocking up right now on honey that's in the frames I set out.
Everybody.
Hello. We met you the other day. You came up to our driveway
Yeah.
on Northern Lights.
Right.
So at Tony and Julian.
Yeah. So we have 2 hives. We had 3, but we lost 1 to mites. And but we have 2 left, and they're both doing really good. One's a swarm hive and one's a package hive. Yeah, we checked on them on Friday when it was nice and warm, and they both looked really strong. And I think they'll make it pretty easily through winter. We're just deciding whether we want to there's a lot of bees in them, so I'm not really sure how to split them or if I should split them or what to do. Try to prevent them from swarming but the problem is there's not a lot of bees up here, so I'm worried about mating the queens and all that kind of
There.
so. But yeah, we have 2 strong hives, and then I ordered 5 more packages. We'll have 7 going into this spring.
So it was nice meeting you, Jim, and thanks for inviting us
Yeah,
to this call.
thank you.
Yeah, sure.
I never joined it. I walked.
So I had 4 hives, and they're all looking good at this point, but it's still early. I feel like there's a lot of winter left.
Yeah. In fact, when you mention a lot of winter left, that's something that we're going to talk about a little later, because we'll still get a good frost even up into April. So it's real important that, you are lifting the back of your hive just a little bit to see how heavy it is. That's going to give you an idea of the stores that they have in there. And we really need to make sure that they've got enough stores to last at least for the next couple months, because we're not really going to have much nectar flow for a couple months. So Michael, our past president, reported that his bees are already bringing in some pollen. I haven't seen pollen for mine yet. Anybody else want to talk about their bees?
Yeah, I can talk about my bees. And so I have lost 4 hives this year. As far as bringing in the pollen, they're not going to. I have seen here in Reno that they.
Hey, Stefan, I can't really hear you. I don't know if anybody else can.
Oh, sorry. I said I've noticed here in Reno that the bees start bringing in pollen late January, And so, and they'll be bringing that in until, I mean, basically until the end of the year, but they don't really start to bring in the nectar that I've noticed until about March or April. And so, if they are light, like Jim was saying, you should really be feeding them, and they will take it. I have a couple nucleus colonies that I'm feeding, and they're taking it. They have no problem. There's no problem feeding bees right now, liquid or sugar. They'll take it. So if you're worried about it, just feed them. So
So do you think sugar water will freeze right now, or will that be fine to feed them? Or should we
Uh,
feed them solid sugar?
yeah, so if you, depending on the feeders that you're using, so if you're using a feeder that's like a jar turned upside down, then the temperature difference is going to force the sugar out, but it won't freeze. So then you have to worry about the liquid getting on there. But if like you have an internal feeder or you have a feeder that they can come up to and get food if they want, those work just fine. And if you don't, then sugar is perfectly fine too. They will utilize whatever you give them. So we aren't going to get cold enough long enough for it to really be a problem right now. So
I have 4 hives, and I treated them in mid-October with oxalic acid, and then I followed up with the Apipar strips in late October through the first couple of days of December, and I lost 2 of the hives. The curious thing to me is there were very few corpses. It's like they just left the hive.
yeah, so they probably have seized on you. I mean, it's hard to say without actually seeing the hive itself, but so anybody who is worried about their bees right now, we've gone past the worst part of the year. So your bees, if your bees are alive now and you've treated them and they don't have a mite problem, they will survive as long as they have food. There's losing them in the spring is not very common, and so I know we're technically still in the winter, but the hardest part is that heading into winter, if they survive that fall into winter part and they have enough food, then I and I don't have much experience losing bees. I don't lose very many. So, but usually when I lose the bees, it's almost always that time between October and December. And if I don't lose them then they might be really small and take forever to build up in the spring, but they usually pull through as long as they have enough food. Did that answer your question? I don't even remember.
Yeah, thank you. I was just really curious on why they left. In fact, one of the hives I had 4 swarms from. 4. That's a lot of swarms. So they were very healthy, and that particular hive gave me 2 great honey harvests, one in the spring and one in the fall. So when I treated them with oxalic acid, their population was big, and I'm really puzzled because all 4 of them were very active hives. 2 of them were new hives, and I treated them all the same. And like I said, the 2 that are at my house are the ones that left. And what makes me think they left is, once again, there's very few corpses, but the whole population just left.
Yeah, so they probably had an issue. They were either being harassed by something else, and they decided that it was just better to abscond than to stay. Usually when they get overrun with mites, like even though you treat, I've had hives that I've treated and they just could not get the mites down and they'll abscond. That's usually the cause of absconding.
Maybe that's what happened to mine.
Yeah, a lot of times they'll also do that when if the resource, like especially in the late September, it's really warm, and sometimes a lot of times, at least here in Reno, in town, except for this last year, we usually get a nice late summer flow. And so sometimes they'll start swarming again. And so they might have also just swarmed and not been able to replace the queen because it was too late in the season. That's happened to me before also. But I mean, so naturally you're going to lose 20% of your hives anyways, just because that's natural attrition of the bees. So I find that of the hives that I lose, most of those are usually second or third year queens, and they just, for whatever reason, like they just aren't able to build up the right support, or I have also had them try to replace their queen in the middle of winter. I didn't have any do that this year. The reason the few that I lost them was because of mites. Mites were really bad this last year.
So, Stefan, would it be advisable to reuse the boxes and replace the frames and get new bees and just start over with the existing hive boxes?
So all of the equipment. What you want to do is you want to look at the comb. And so your main concern is the foul brood. And if you don't have a foul brood issue, then I would just reuse them because it's a major resource for the bees that they're not going to have to rebuild. So what you do is you take the comb, you pull out the frames, and then you hold the comb so you can see the bottom of the cells. And they'll have these scales on them. And it's basically dried up mucus corpses of larvae. And if you see that, then it had foul brood in it, and you don't want to use that equipment. But if you're looking at it, and these scales are black, so if you're looking at it and you see like white, it looks like guano, like bat guano, but it's a little teeny, that's usually mite crap, and the bees will just clean out that. It's not going to harm them at all. So they'll be able to pick up and take off with no problem from that. So
Very good. Thank you very much.
yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, our mites, our hives we lost were full of the foul brood. We lost all our last generation because all our hives were full of mites, and I just left the frames in there, and they were able just to clean them out. And I was also, this is our first year doing it, and we have all double deeps, and we were wondering like what you guys use to overwinter. They seem to be doing good in the double deep so far, but I don't know what you use.
Yeah, so bees are really adaptable, and so they'll winter with whatever you give them as long as you give them enough attention. But I find that double deeps are the easiest to overwinter in. It's plenty of resources for them, and you don't have to worry about them running out of, like if they have a double deep and at least one of those deeps is full of honey, they'll make it through winter. I winter in singles and nukes and triples and doubles, but the doubles seem to do the best. Singles do really good too. You just have to keep on top of them because they burn through their food pretty fast. So.
Well, oh, sorry, I just want to.
Season splits. Go ahead.
Sorry, I just want to say I went into the winter with 8 hives and I lost 1 hive in late fall due to wasps.
So I did a lot of late season splits, and most of my colonies are in a double nuke right now, and they seem to be doing really good in those doubles.
Yeah, the hives that I sent into winter, so I didn't count those in my hive count because those aren't considered hives according to the ag department. But a couple nukes I took into winter, like I'm having to feed those, but they are doing just fine. I can only imagine how well a double nukes would do. Like they do well.
So then I guess only have three hives going into winter. Well, 4, 1 died.
Okay, so Stefan, you mentioned, you're going to start seeing them bringing in pollen. That is a good sign the queen's already started laying, and she will start laying as the days get longer. They say basically from the winter solstice on, queen will start laying small amounts, and she's starting to ramp up for springtime. So that's why it's really important to make sure that they are going to have enough food. Give them some sugar water, because once they start, they're just going to start consuming, whatever they have in there. So once you start seeing pollen coming in, you know that you're going to have to feed them. And Stefan, do you want to talk about a mite treatment here in late winter, early spring?
Sure. So if you haven't, it really depends on how you went into winter. So I have hives that went into winter. I have hives that went into winter that were, rolling, 5 to 10 mites in my wash, which is and those.
Some cool music, man.
Somebody needs to mute themselves because I can't hear Stefan.
Yeah, I think she muted herself.
She got to it. Okay.
So so it really depends on your mite load in going into fall, and so I had heavy mite loads even though I'd been treating, and so I did do a treatment. I did a treatment in late fall, and I had issues getting treatment too because the back order on everything. So but this time of year now is a perfect time to do the cheapest and most effective mite treatment possible, and that is just an oxalic acid dribble or the vapor. I don't do the vapor because I am worried about killing my lungs, and but I know that Deborah does the vapor, and so at this time of year, because there's so little brood in the hives, I honestly don't think that our hives ever go broodless here in this area. I don't think it actually gets cold enough, but there's so little brood right now, and there's not any resources for them, so they're not going to keep any brood. So now all the mites are exposed. So if you do an oxalic acid treatment, now is the time to do it. And it's going to be like 99% effective. Whereas the only way you're going to get effectiveness like that is to use a harsher chemical like the Mite Away Quick Strips or the Apivar strips. So if you went into winter with any mites at all, now is an easy time to treat, and you don't have to do much. You just take the top off. I mean, if you're doing a vapor one, then you just plug the holes and you smoke them out, get them all high on oxalic acid vapors. But if you're going to do a dribble, you just take the lid off, take the top off, put 5 mLs down every seam on the top. It will drip down onto the cluster. You don't have to worry about breaking it open and finding cluster. Just do it from the top. It's not the most effective, but it'll be way more effective than any other oxalic acid treatment in the year. So yeah, that's the one I would do. If you're not worried about honey production early in the spring, Apivar is really good. You get a thymol treatment; those work really well. Basically, anything would work super well right now because you don't have a lot of brood. So now or within the next couple weeks is a good time to get yourself off to a good start without mites.
And you don't really have to break up the brood because in winter the bees mostly move up into the upper box because that's where most of the food and the rest of the food is. So towards the end of the winter, bees are most likely going to sit kind of under the lid, so it's easy to dribble on them.
Yeah, and even if you don't see them, like if you know the hive is alive, So like I have some hive. I have this one hive that has a cluster about the size of a football. I thought it was dead, honestly. And I opened it up the top and I saw a bee or two, but I just thought it was robbers. And then I was like, oh, I don't think there's any bees in here. I cracked open the second box and I broke open their cluster. And I saw them. So I put them back together and then I just treated from the top because I don't want to break it up if I didn't want to, but because I thought it was dead, I was just going to redistribute its resources. So, yeah.
Hey, Stefan, you mentioned you were worried about the vapor. I bought one of the vapor tools last year, and I find it extremely easy to use. I'm not worried about my lungs or anything. I bought a little battery. It's actually a motorcycle battery, and I hook it up. I set it into the hive. It doesn't begin to turn to gas for at least 30 to 40 seconds. I walk 40 feet away. I let it do its job for 7 minutes, and then it dissipates, and I go back in there. I unplug it, and I let the hive just air out naturally. I did that in October. This is my first year, by the way. And I felt it worked very good, and I felt very comfortable using the vapor. You just don't want to stand around the hive while it's doing it. You just walk away, and it worked quite well. And I was quite pleased with it.
Yeah, my father does the vapor one too, but I just like for me myself. I mean, it works perfectly well. I'm sure. I don't have any issues with its effectiveness. I know there has been questions about it, but the more I research about it, I mean, it seems just as effective as some of the other stuff, even though the research is kind of out on it. It's just for me that it's just so much easier just to dribble 50 mLs of oxalic acid sugar right on top of the bees, you know.
Wyatt, what you doing?
But no, I mean, if you have the equipment and you want to use it, that was definitely the easiest way to do it, especially this time of year. But for me, that's just not what I do. So. Any other
Did
questions?
anybody use the mite boards, the screen bottom boards? I bought some of those. I haven't tried them yet.
Yeah, I use screen bottom boards on a lot of my hives. I use both the solid bottom boards and the screen bottom boards. I don't really worry one way or another with them. They are very nice. So when I do a treatment, I clean off the boards. They're not very effective for knowing how many mites you have because you will get mite drop, but they are very good to see how effective your mite drop is. And so I clean them off, I do a mite treatment, and then I pull them out once a day to just look at them, and you can see how many mites drop. So they're very effective for that. And then in the summertime, they're very nice for adding a little extra ventilation to the hive.
Thanks.
Yeah, I like the screen bottom boards too. Besides being able to tell your mite drop, you can also tell where the bees are working within the hive. You can see where they've, kind of chewed stuff up, or, they're dropping stuff. So you'll have these little mounds in rows, basically right underneath all of your openings between the frames. So it's really good. You can actually see if they're working one side of your hive box versus the other. And then you kind of have an idea of what you're going to find once you go in there, and, actually just focus on that real quick, especially if they've been feeding off of that and they're almost finished with, cleaning out the frames. I'll find another frame that has, like edges of honey, and I'll swap them out. So screen bottom boards work great. Okay, Randy, I've got a question for you.
I didn't open it.
Did you run into any bears this season so far?
Well, the bears were here, but I had no damage. I have fencing up, but they walked right by and left their scat to let me know they're still around, and they ate the fruit and things like that, but no damage.
All right. I guess it was a couple years ago you lost a couple hives to bears.
Oh yes, oh yeah, got wiped out.
Could you go check on my hives that are down near there?
Sure.
Okay, so that now that you're unmuted there, Randy, we've got a new year coming up, and we've got dues coming up again. And I know that that Mark had been looking at being able to use either PayPal or another possible payment plan. But I know, Randy, you still accept checks for membership, and we're still at $20 for a season.
25.
We're at 25. Oh, thank you.
And I have received 3 already this year, so 3 members.
Okay, thanks for correcting me there. $25 for the season.
I'll have more information on electronic payments at the next meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody else want to talk about their bees?
Yeah. Hi, this is I don't know if you can hear.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, sorry, I didn't have my laptop open. Anyways, this is Courtney and Chris. We're pretty new to beekeeping. We just have one hive that Barbara helped us catch this year. And unfortunately, we think we lost him. We were really struggling with mites at the end of the season. So I guess our biggest question is, when do you open the hive? We're pretty sure they're gone, but we're also afraid to break a cluster. Like you mentioned, you opened one up and you might run the risk that there's a couple in there. Anyway, so we also are, looking to figure out how to keep those mites down throughout the year so that we have better success for next year, and maybe increasing our hives to 3 or 4 for this next year and see how we do.
Yeah, so I can take that. Oh, wow, just completely lost it. So your mites are something, especially if you got a swarm, that's something you're going to need to be on top of like right away. Doing mite washes and keeping them. The equipment is probably just fine, like I was talking about earlier. As far as going into the hive, I wouldn't worry about it at all. I mean, as long as well, if it's the only hive, you don't know if bees are flying. But if it's about 45, 50 degrees, I wouldn't worry about popping it open. I mean, you don't want to open them up all the time, but if you're doing it to check to see if they're even alive, then it's not a problem. There is this saying that, there's bees that are cold and dead and bees that are warm and dead. And so the bees might look dead if it's cold out, but if it's warm out and they're not moving, then they definitely are dead because they get really slow when it's cold. So, but I wouldn't worry about it. I would just pick one of these nice days where it's almost 50 or a little over 50 and wear your veil and just pop it open. You'll know right away. Like when you start breaking that box open, you'll know right away. They'll come to visit you if they're alive. So
yeah, I guess maybe our curiosity is we want to figure out what we could have done better. We did treat when we first caught the swarm, but I think we need to get better. We've done the oxalic acid, just better effectiveness maybe at the treatment. So I think mostly for planning for next year, we're anxious to pop it open to sort of look and see what happened. We also had some robbing going on quite a bit in the fall, so we're not sure if they were just weakened and then got robbed out.
Yeah, so for diagnosing why a hive died, you really need to be diagnosing it like as soon as you can after it dies. So I would get in there as soon as possible. And like I was explaining earlier, if you don't see those foul brood scales on there, then it's most likely mites or some other so foul brood is the absolute worst thing you should have to you want to deal with. Everything else is pretty much treatable, or the bees can take care of it over time. But foul brood is something that you can't survive. So I would go in there as soon as you can, and if you see the white guano from the mites, then I wouldn't worry about it. I'd just throw another hive in there. But if you see the foul brood scales inside the comb, then you would want to at least no longer use. So if we say not to use used equipment, but if you like, when I get used equipment, what I do is I will torch the equipment and then I will paint over it. So you would want to get rid of all the frames if it was foul brood, but you could torch and paint the equipment and you reuse the boxes, but not the frames if it's foul brood. So did that answer your question? Sorry.
Yeah, I think so. I think we know what to look for. We'll probably Google some images too to help us out.
Yeah, for sure.
Hi, this is Leslie, and we're going into our third season. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
Yes.
So we're going into our third season, and we had a very unsuccessful second season. When we came out of last winter, the hive looked really strong. We did a mite count. We had low mites. My husband had been treating it with the oxalic acid with the gas, and everything looked really good and strong. And then we just noticed that there just wasn't a lot of action, and we feel like we missed maybe a swarm, and had our mentor come over, John, and he took a look at it, and he said we kind of came to the determination that it was queenless. And so we replaced the queen that very day, waited like 48 hours or whatever to release her. And the hive just failed. And so we didn't get any honey last fall. And so we're entering our third season now, starting all over. And anxious to get going again. Just curious, how early can we put in a new box of bees and a queen?
So you can put in bees anytime you can get them. Your problem, so if you're going to be buying bees from a local beekeeper, you're not going to nobody's going to be able to get any local bees available until the end of April, May, sometimes even June, depending on the weather. But you can purchase stuff out of California. Like if you can, as long as it has a mated queen already, you can put anything in at any time. It'll be fine. It just depends on what genetics you're looking for and what you're getting. So yeah, just going through and looking for, like we were talking about before, just making sure you don't have any foul brood problems, then you won't have any issues at all. And they will actually pick up really quick too, because you have all that built out comb. And I'm sure you probably put in a queen, like you said, but it's really hard for hives. When it gets into September, October time, it's really hard to get bees to accept a queen.
Right. It wasn't quite that late. I think maybe it was June or July. We put the new queen. Yeah. And then, so once we realized, nothing was happening, we checked the frames and there were a lot of moths. In fact, my husband has kind of pulled the whole hive apart in the last 3 weeks, and we discarded those frames because it just was overrun with moths.
Yeah, so wax moth sucks. They destroy a lot of equipment, but you can put that equipment and just leave it out in the sun. They don't like sun, and so they'll leave the comb. And even though there's the webbings and everything in there, if you put them in I wouldn't put them in a hive that you just introduced, but if you have a hive that's strong, you can put wax moth damaged comb in, and the bees will clean that up and have it ready to use within 24 to 48 hours. I know that seems amazing, but it's cool. I've had comb that's all black, and then because it's been used, but it got damaged by a wax moth, and I've put it in hives, and they clean out all the webbing, and then they have these little patches of perfectly white strips of wax where they've repaired the damage from the wax moth. But that's strong hives. I wouldn't put it in a small hive, but just a big strong hive. And unfortunately, some bees, even though you had a queen, I mean, sometimes they just don't make it, unfortunately. But it does sound like it got overrun with wax moth. With the cold weather, it should have killed off all the wax moth that was in there.
Yeah, all the wax moths died. They actually burrowed into the frames itself as well. So, I dumped everything there. But I'm curious, we have about 6 of the combs with honey on them still, frames with honey on them, and we've kept those. When we introduce a new hive, is it okay to keep that honey there too?
Yeah, that's perfectly fine. What you could do is look at those comb and make sure that there's no wax moth in them. If there is wax moth in them, it's no big deal. You can put, if it's full of resource, put it in. They'll use it. Especially a young hive that's getting ready to go. They would love that. But if there's no wax moth in it or anything like that, you could just take that honey and you could just crush it and strain it and then have yourself some honey from last year. But that's all your call. They're going to get a lot of resources in the spring. So that's really, what do you want?
So another option there, when I've had wax moths, if I find them right away before they've destroyed everything, I'll pull them out and I'll put them in the freezer. I usually can only put like 3 frames at a time in my freezer because it's, just a compartment up above. And I'll put them in a bag so I don't get all kinds of little pieces of wax that break off in the freezer. So that will kill any of the wax moths and it'll kill their eggs. So it usually takes about 2 to 3 days in the freezer, and then you can rotate them out. And then like Stefan said, you can set them out in the sun, and the wax moths don't like that and they won't get back in them. But of course, if you set them out in the sun, then they'll get robbed out by all the other bees and cleaned out. So once you get the wax moths cleaned out by freezing them, hold on to those frames that have some honey on them. And yes, you could crush and, strain it, but those are just fabulous for catching a swarm. When I go out and get a swarm, I'll have my box there up on a little table, and because I won't go actually move it until after dusk. But a couple of frames in there, even if they just have a little bit of honey on them, that will keep the swarm in your box, and everybody will just glom onto that. And by dusk, all the bees that were up in the tree or wherever will be down in your box ready to go home. So those kind of frames that have a bit of honey on them still, I treat them as gold for this coming season for either swarms or splits. And we'll be talking about both of those in future monthly meetings. One meeting will probably focus totally on catching swarms, and then another meeting we'll talk about how to do splits. So yeah, you're lucky that you've got a few frames there that have honey on them that you've made through winter on.
So in the chat, one of the questions was, how do you split a strong hive in the spring? It is super easy. You take a frame and you make sure there's eggs and larvae on it, and you just put that in the next hive, and then you shake a bunch of extra bees in there, and most of them will go back to the original hive, but you'll have enough to take care of that, and they'll raise some queens. But you want to wait until you have a strong population of drones. So like I start to see drones in usually late February, early March, but I don't end up with good mating until the end of March, April time. So you don't, even though you could probably technically get away with it, you're really pushing your luck. But I would wait until April or so, and then just find a frame with eggs and larvae, move it over. Sorry, I'm done.
So, can you recommend a company that we could contact out of California that would have new bees and a queen?
So if you're wanting to get them right away, I would look at, you might want to look into Conan's, and then there's also, there's Oliveras, and then the Sacramento Bee Club has some bees that Jim was talking about a while back, that they're doing a big package order from. So there's a lot of bees available. I personally am a breed bees that are adapted to your area, but if you don't have bees, then definitely do what you got to do. Most people around here, like I said, won't have bees until April and May, just because so we have a nice warm winter, and then March kills us, and and then so you can't really start too much earlier in March. So
I just felt that when we got our first packaged bees in May, I think it was really kind of mid-May, was almost too late. Well, because we only ended up with, when we finally harvested, we got about 20 gallons. No, did we get 20? Maybe
4
it was,
gallons.
4 gallons of honey. And we expected more. So I just felt it had something that we started too late in the season. But we're also new to Nevada as well, so.
yeah, so
Okay, well-
there's the issue that you have when you're starting a new hive is that, so our spring flow really does kick off in April, like it, and then through May and through June is when it starts to taper down. And so when you're getting a package of bees, your first year, you're really looking to just get them built up to be ready to get through winter. But then depending on your area, they might be strong enough that you can actually get honey. Usually the first year on a package, you won't get a lot of honey, which is why I do a lot of nukes and I give built out comb, which you can't do obviously starting out. I mean, it takes a lot of time to have those resources available to you. But that's, so like if I go out and make a split now at the end of March or in April, because I have the equipment and I have the frames and the comb that's all built out, I fully expect to get honey from that hive. But if I were to set a new package in a hive that doesn't have any built out comb, doesn't have anything like that, even if I feed the crap out of them, they're not going to be able to produce for me the first year. So, and that is a problem that we have. I mean, your first year is really hard to get a honey crop because they have so much work they have to do. But now that you already have all that comb built out, they're not going to have as much work so they'll be able to produce more for you. So
Got it.
I don't know. Did I go off on a tangent?
And would you recommend putting in more of a split than putting in a new package?
So if you have comb already built out, packages are just fine. They're going to be able to take over that comb with no problem. If you don't have comb, personally, I would recommend nucleus hives just because they already have those 5 frames that are all built out, full of resources and bees on the way. Whereas with a package, they have to start from scratch. But with that being said, since you already have comb, it's not going to put them back, but maybe a week or two compared to a nuke because you already have resources available for them to use, which is the built out comb.
Thank you.
So I got some Secatraz bees from OHB down in just north of San Francisco, and I was able to harvest first year about 4 gallons of honey off of them, and I started off from scratch.
Well, that's good. You know, as Stefan said, that you really have to realize that those bees are going to have to make their own wax, make the comb. And I always kind of consider it that it takes about 7 pounds of honey or nectar to make a pound of wax. And they've got to make that wax, you know, and go ahead and build their comb. So usually that first year, unless you can get them started with frames that are already drawn out comb, you're not going to get much. So you were real lucky to get, you know, 4 gallons out of that.
Well, and Jason, your area is really good. Like
Red Rock.
I would be surprised if I didn't get honey from your location. So,
up in Red Rock.
Well, I don't know about the Red Rock ones, but I know the ones that you have down south. That's a amazing location. So
yeah, they were up in Red Rock, but I think that location's a little bit better. I don't think anybody else in that general area has bees. I know somebody else has bees up there, but I think they're about 3-4 miles away. So I don't think there's any competition for my bees.
Yeah. And there's not a lot of resources up there. You know, it's like you don't have alfalfa fields and you don't have the vegetation and, you know, all the plants we have in town.
I'm in that first little community, so I got all the just tons of fruit trees in that area. They got Russian sage. It's just, there was a ton. Oh, there's a couple yards that have a pretty good size. What is that poisonous plant? Oleanders. Would the nectar from that be poisonous too? Does anybody know?
I don't.
I hope not, because I'm not twitching yet.
Get yourself a little hallucinogenic honey. Really and truly, at this time of year, what you're as a beekeeper, you know, if you have two things you got to look at is you got to try to plan what you want to do for this coming year. You know, do you want to maintain your hives? Do you want to expand your apiaries? Do you want to what is your end goal for the year? And then you need to decide what it's going to take to do that. So like this coming year, I want to sell 40 nucleus colonies and 20 packages and 50 queens. So what do I need to get to that point? I'm not saying that everybody wants to do that, but regardless of what your situation is, you need to decide where you want to be at the end of the year. And the reason I say that is because now is the time to start doing those things. So like just this last week, I built 16 new nuke boxes because I know that I'm going to need them in order to fulfill the orders I have for nucleus colonies. And so if you're starting out as a beekeeper, you now is the time you want to find your bees that you're going to order. You want to find your equipment. You want to get your equipment built. because even though it seems like that's way out there, it's going to catch up really fast. And it happens to me every year, no matter how much I want to be on top of it and planning and ready to go. Every year, I always get caught off guard and I always get swamped by whatever it is, you know. So you gotta, now is the time to start planning. So if you have one hive that survived and you want to make it 2 hives, then you should get your equipment ready, make sure your equipment's ready, make sure you're all ready for those things. So you don't have to be scrambling when it comes time that you want to make those splits, or you want to have bees set up, or you want to, you know, now is a good time to be looking into those things. So that's just my 2 cents.
I was wondering, so with that, like I was saying earlier, how I want to split my swarm hive because they're so strong. Is there like a minimum number of hives you should have for drone production to make sure you have enough genetic diversity? Like
so
where I'm over here, like kind of above Bonanza, kind of off on the side of Peavine, and there's just not a lot of bees around here.
So your drones, when your drones fly out of the hive, they're going to stay within about a mile of the hive, whereas your queens are they going to fly up to like 3 miles away from the hive to get mated. So you're going to want to, I mean, you're not going to have, your bees are not going to contribute to your genetic diversity. Your bees, if you're up off of Peavine, depending on where you are, if you're within 2 to 3 miles of Reno proper, your queen is going to fly over here to find a drone congregation area to mate. Yeah. So the amount of bees you have isn't going to affect your mating. What's going to affect your mating is the genetics of the bees that people within 3 miles of you have. So like I have bees off of well, I have a couple different spots off of McCarran where I keep bees at, and one of them I cannot get queens mated there to save my life. Like they will not, like I've seen queens in there, they go out to get mated and then they're gone. I end up having to replace them from a queen from another place just because whatever in that spot is not conducive to mating queens. And so you got to be okay with that, that you may not be able to get mated queens where you're at. But like I said, if you're within 3 miles of any other beekeeper, those queens are probably going to be able to get mated. So did that answer your question?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I was just a little bit worried, but yeah, that sounds good.
But definitely you should. That every beekeeper, their goal should be to never have to buy bees again. Honestly, that should be your goal. And so you should definitely try making splits. You should definitely try doing those things, because bees, I mean, I'm in the business of selling bees, so I'll sell you whatever bees you want, but that when it comes to keeping bees, the actual bees themselves are the least valuable part of the equation. The most valuable part of the equation is the honey and the comb. So, but people should do everything they can. But I mean, you just may be in an area where you can't raise bees or at least make queens. I mean, and then you just have to buy queens. But everybody should definitely try if they're able to.
Okay, yeah, I'm not too far from San Rafael, so maybe she can make it down there.
So you're probably getting some of my genetics.
Yeah. I'm right where Bonanza is, right above the Bonanza there.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure that your area is probably fine.
Okay, Deborah, you had a guest that you wanted to introduce and kind of show us some stuff that he does.
Yeah, can you hear me okay? Okay. So I have a gentleman that his name is Eric, and he owns a wood shop, and he basically has come up with these beautiful frames. Mark, can you share my screen real quick?
Okay, you can share now.
Okay, thank you. So basically, let me get here to the right one.
If you'd like,
Makes-
Deb, I've got photos ready too. I can show.
Oh, okay. So just real quick, I wanted to show these beautiful I call them bee comb frames that he's made for other clubs and as well as vendors. And I just think they're just gorgeous. So I'll let Eric talk a little bit about his projects that he's done. And, we might have an opportunity to purchase in a bulk situation if people in the club are interested. Okay, Eric.
Well, thanks, Deb. Hi, everybody. Cheers. Yeah, so I think Deb reached out to my wife on either Facebook or Instagram. I started this wood shop. I've been doing it for a couple of years part-time. But as you guys know, 2020 has been rough for a lot of people. It's been rough for me as well. So about 2 months ago, I decided to do this full-time. I make a lot of furniture, beds, nightstands, tables, but it kind of all started with these little honeycomb shelves. I have two different kinds that I make. The ones that have been most popular are made from cedar. They're really good for outdoor use, and that's these guys right here. They're 6 inches wide, 5.5 inches deep by 16 inches across. And I make them, I do about 100 of them a week. I sell them for $7 a piece or 5 for $30, which is $6 a piece. So anything over 5 to 100, $6. Anything over 100, I'll do $5 a piece. So Deb, I don't know what you had in mind as far as bulk orders or anything, but if you wanted to get them for the club and then people buy them from you, we could work something out, but that's kind of the price point. And then I have another set that I make. These are really good for outdoors because they're cedar. So they'll withstand the elements really well. We put a bunch in our backyard up against our fence and put little, they're like little solar tiki lights that you put in there. And it's kind of cool for outdoor decor. But then the indoor ones I make out of locally sourced sugar pine. I got a guy up in Portola that has a mill who uses a lot of the wood that was cut down from the fires in Northern California. And so I repurposed that. He's got a kiln or a drying barn and everything. So he dries all the wood himself and cuts it. And so, yeah, but I mean, I do other stuff too, so.
Do you do any bee boxes or we have a lot of people that need equipment?
Yeah, I would definitely be open to that. It would just be as simple as me looking online and finding like some plans and seeing what it is that makes a bee box as opposed to just a normal box. I'm sure Steven, you sound pretty knowledgeable, and Jim, if any of you guys want to send me some plans that you already might have, let me know, and I can definitely kind of look at it and then price out my materials and get you a price for what they would cost to make, and also a turnaround time. But the honeycomb shelves, I typically have about 100 of them on. I try to have 100 of them per week on hand. I batch them out every Friday, and then that takes me through the weekend. And I had 120 of them sitting on Friday, and a lady bought 80 of them. And so she like wiped out my entire stock. And right now I've got like, I don't know, about a dozen left. So, but yeah, it's been a blessing.
Thank you. Yeah, we had a little bit of a box shortage this past year because of COVID. And so everybody started getting into beekeeping, and our normal suppliers, the boxes were just back ordered for months. And I know I was getting calls, have you know anybody that can make boxes or, selling? So yeah, that might be another opportunity for you. But yeah, we'll take some, if there's a lot of interest, maybe we can do a bulk kind of thing. But if you can go ahead and maybe put your contact info in the chat so everybody can reach you, if maybe they want to do it on their own, would be great.
I will definitely do that. So do I have to have permission to share my screen on here?
Mark, can you do that?
You already have permission.
Okay, great. So, so this page here, can you guys see this?
Yep.
Okay. Let me try to. So yeah, these are the honeycomb shelves. Deborah, I think you got this lady started.
Yeah, that's one of my mentees, Talissa. She owns a business out of her home here in Cold Spring. She sells all these wonderful candles and soaps, and I got her started with a hive, and I think she's up to 5 hives now. I'm not sure. She's been doing really well, and I'm proud to say, that there are more beekeepers out here in Cold Springs now. But yeah, she bought those from you.
Yeah. And then, so just to give you guys an idea, when I say I do 120 at a time, these are all the cut and stacked pieces. And then it turns into, that's 120 sitting right there. But, not to get too, I know this is a bee, but a beekeepers association, but like I said, I do sell some other stuff. There are some plant people out there. These planters have been really popular, and just wanted to show off a couple of things. These are my beds that I make, a farmhouse bed with the nightstands. So yeah, tell your friends, because I'm doing this full time now.
Nice. Thank you, Eric.
Yeah.
One thing, Eric, is that if you look at like Man Lake or Dadant, and I don't know about other people, but I know for myself when I'm looking for equipment that there has been a few times in the past where I could get stuff locally, and usually for the same price or better than what those people would be. And I would, like most people would prefer to support a local or a local business than to. So if you can, because for a lot of those boxes, they're getting $18 to $20 a box, and so if you could match or beat those prices, then I think you would have quite the opportunity here.
Yeah, that sounds great. And I couldn't agree more. That's why I decided to do this full time, because with this year being so crappy, you're absolutely right. I think the community is coming together more and supporting each other, and everyone's starting to realize that it's, the mom and pop shops, it's the small businesses that keep our communities afloat. It's not Amazon, it's not Walmart. It's as a woodworker, I took all of my business from Home Depot and went to a couple of local shops like Apex Saw, and there's a woodworking store in South Reno. So to that point, yeah, I'd love to. I always try to keep my prices really, really fair. Like these honeycomb shelves, people go on Etsy and Pinterest and stuff, and they see them for like $20 a piece. And I can't tell you how many people have showed up at my door and picked up, 10 of them and said, "Why are you selling these so cheap?" And I'm like, my profit margin is there. I'm making a little bit of money on them. There's enough American greed out there right now. I don't need to be a part of it. So long as my margins are covered, if you're getting a good price and you're getting a good quality product, especially with wood that was sourced locally and it's being recycled, it's a win all around. So yeah, Deborah, thank you so much for letting me come on. I really appreciate it. And yeah, send me some ideas. Send me what the boxes look like. I'll do some of my own research. And Deb, I've got your contact information. I'll reach out to you and let you know some price points.
Hey, Eric, real quick again, is there any way that we can get your contacts sent out, email to everybody here? I would love to have your email contact. If you could pull that up or put that out somehow, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. Whatever's easiest for you guys.
Yeah, I see it in the chat already.
Into the group chat right now. And
I
then
see it. Okay.
That's the Instagram here. Let me send.
Awesome.
It's Grit and Grain, all one word, the number 1 at gmail.com. Oops, I definitely misspelled that.
All right, I greatly appreciate it, and I have to say, I was a woodworker, I still am for 50 plus years, I'm retired now. You are undertaking a honorable profession that is tough to make money at. So congrats to you for doing it. It's a great occupation, and yes, we'll do our best to support you.
Thank you, Steve. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I was a foreman. I ran heavy equipment for about 17 years, and I just grew tired of that industry. You know, there's a lot of not nice people out there, and the moment you show the slightest bit of kindness or softness, as they like to say out there, people just walk all over you. So it's a tough industry, and I didn't get to let my creative juices flow. And I really love working with people, and that's a huge aspect to woodworking, I think, is getting to collaborate with other people, and they design something in their head, and then I get to make it come to life. Yeah, it's very, very satisfying. But anyway, I can talk on and on. You guys don't want to hear about woodworking, so thank you again, and go Packers.
Go Pack, go.
Right.
Okay, one of the things about making boxes, in order to make them sturdy, they usually have dovetails where they'll fit together. And then the two ends are routed down about a quarter, 3/8 of an inch for the tongues of the frames to drop into. And the dimensions are actually really pretty tight, mainly because you want those boxes to fit all your other existing equipment. That's one thing that we tell everybody to really look at when they're buying equipment, is to make sure they get something that's gonna at least match up with their existing stuff, because you want to be able to make these boxes interchangeable, because you start out with two at the beginning of spring, you're putting on two more, it's like, then you get to fall, you're pulling off one, changing them around. So dimensions are going to be real important there.
Okay. Yeah, sounds good.
And yeah, looking at your angles and how everything fit together, and they all look just fabulous. So I'm sure you know how to do all that stuff really well.
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely tools to make it easier.
Really nice.
One of which
I was really impressed by all that wood.
I don't know if you can see that, but that's
a joiner.
That's no, it's actually a router table. So
okay.
Yeah, so that'll make quick work of all that stuff. So
all right, cool. All right, thanks for being on, joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so like I mentioned, we're in future meetings, we're going to have these once a month, and we're going to go back to the second Monday of every month. January's meeting here ended up being the third Monday, and that's just because I may have been a little lazy in getting everything together and sending it out. I don't know. It takes a little while sometimes to put together some of that stuff, but we've got a really great board. Our officers in the club here, and we're going to get together in the next week or so and plan out some meetings and speakers going forward. I know that one of the meetings that we're going to want to have is looking at Randy Oliver's video that we took a couple years ago when he came up and talked to us. Real informative, and kind of like Stefan said, it's like bees take care of themselves. It's like you're not going to end up killing them, you know, unless you really goof up. And I think Randy Oliver did a good job of talking about that also. That you just have to provide them with, you know, food and shelter, and they thrive. So look forward to some of these next meetings. Like I say, it'll be the second Monday of each month. And I'll be sending out a newsletter with more information on all that. Anybody else want to get in here? Deb, if you're talking, you're on mute.
Where do we send the dues?
The dues, right.
Where do we send them?
Okay.
Depending on how you want to do it. Sorry, this is Mark. I'll turn my camera here. There we go. Hopefully by next month, I'll have all the details worked out. So if you desire to, you'll have an option to do a payment online. So you can just submit them online. If not, we'll set up an address so you can mail a check in for the dues.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Jim, yeah, there was a few new postings on Facebook that I put, I think today or yesterday, for free conferences and or very cheap conferences that are online. One is actually a Randy Oliver web session that might interest people that want to check out his program. So yeah, take advantage while we're still on lockdown, you know, and enjoy the free information.
So I lost one hive. We lost one hive this year. And I guess my point is we have a Vivaldi board on top of the other hive. And that lets me know when the bees need to be fed. So it's good to like keep sugar in there. So when they go up there, you know, if they're hungry and they could starve.
Yeah, those boards are awesome. I use them every winter. I put pollen patties and dry sugar, and yeah, it gives me a little window into peeking how they're doing without having to crack open the boxes, usually if it's a cooler day. So yeah, and be sure to change out those shavings, or if you're using burlap, you know, make sure they're not too wet and swap them out.
Right, exactly. So my comment was really more for like maybe the newbies that have quality that might need a little bit of help. So they don't know it. So I said something.
Awesome.
So Deborah, you want to mention the name of those boards again? So people can look them up online?
Yeah, they're Vivaldi boards. They used to sell them online. There are a few vendors out there that make them, but they're very expensive. You can also, you know, kind of makeshift your own using an empty box and a bottom board, or not a bottom board, a inner cover, and sort of simulate the same thing. But yeah, I use them on all my hives and keeps all the moisture out.
Right. So Eric could make money by maybe making some of these for the club. So.
Yeah, that would be an awesome idea. There are plans online. They look fairly easy to make. Of course, with somebody like Eric with the right tools. So yeah, I could share that with him definitely. And yeah, get them out to everybody.
Yeah, on those, if you go on YouTube and go to Vino Farms, he just made some videos about those. And there's a company in Oregon that just started making them again too. Or you can get your plans and make your own. But I was just watching this weekend some videos on that on Vino Farms on YouTube on how to make those.
What's it called?
Vino Farms. It's a YouTube channel.
Okay.
And he does a bunch of bee videos.
I will look it up.
Board, like Four Seasons song. That makes sense.
Okay, so for next month, you can look forward to a newsletter coming out before the meeting, in enough time to plan for it, and it will have information in there on the dues.
Hello,
and-
YouTube. Welcome back. If you're a subscriber, thank you. I'm sorry.
And where to send the dues, and also how to get a check to Randy if you just need to mail in your dues. So we'll have all that information available for you next month. And like I say, the board will get together and we'll figure out some speakers and when we're going to do what programs. We usually try to stay with the beekeeping calendar. So, this January meeting was basically, it's like, how did you do through winter? Stefan had, really great advice. Plan what you want to do for this year and figure out how you're going to get there. If you want to have, 5 hives and you only have 2 hive boxes so far, you're going to need 3 more. And most of those hives are at least, 2 boxes, and then you need some supers to go on there. So, whether you're going to buy them, whether you're going to make them, whether you're going to buy the kit basically and assemble them yourself, and go buy the special exterior glue, wood glue, and whether you're going to use galvanized nails, whether you're going to use deck screws, there's a lot of planning that goes into doing this stuff. So this is the time to be planning what you want to do for this year, and also cleaning up your equipment that you have set aside from last year. I have a small shed that probably has 12 empty boxes with frames. Some of them are drawn out, some of them are just brand new, ready to go. I've got probably 2 boxes of frames that I need to finish scraping and cleaning. Some of them have the plastic foundation that I'm going to replace. I got to pop those out, get out my my little propane torch, sterilize the frame before I pop in the new plastic foundation. There's some frames that I actually wire and embed actual wax foundation. So I've got quite a bit to do before we get to swarm and split season. Because once we get to swarm season, you're going to need to be driving around with equipment in the trunk so that when you get that call, you can be there in 30 minutes, because the bees are not going to wait for you. They may sit there in the tree for a little while, but I've been out on calls, and by the time I get there, the folks that call me said, "Oh, they left 15 minutes ago." So, be thinking about what you're going to do. Do you want to catch swarms this year? If you catch swarms, like was mentioned earlier, you got to make sure that you're going to treat them for mites, because a lot of the swarms have come out of a box, and it may have just been a box that somebody just doesn't look at. It's like, I know a guy who got into brewing beer, and he had bees, and unlike Stefan, he did not make mead. He just went direct for the beer, but he hadn't looked at his bees in 3 years. Oh, you're drinking your mead. Okay. Stefan brews some great mead. Oh, there it is. Oh, the hibiscus. Yes. I think that was your best. We got together as a board what, last fall or something?
Yeah, this is like my fourth or fifth batch of hibiscus mead. It's really good. Yeah, I'm feeling great. So you can ask me any questions. I will say yes.
Hey, real quick, Eric, I got your email back. You posted your email online. You forgot to put on Woodshop 1. So that email does not go through. So would you please post it again on that for everybody so that it is Grit and Grain Woodshop 1?
Yeah, I did. I just sent the message. I'll send it again.
All right, awesome. Awesome. Okay. And you'll be hearing from me.
Yeah, I'd like to get some of the venti boards.
Is that so is that, are they called Vivaldi boards?
Yep.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, I will definitely look into the plans, and maybe this weekend on my day off, I'll kind of mess around with it and just build one and see how it turns out. And I'll get with you, Steve, or Jim, or Deb, and kind of see what you guys think.
Eric, they're really easy to build. I built one this year for my hives, and I built it with a food supply chamber, and it's pretty simple, really. And when you see it, so you'll be able to modify and make different options for people, or mass produce them as far as that goes. It's really, really simple. And it's just a great little thing that goes on top of the box. So yeah, check it out.
I will. Yeah, I mean, usually with stuff like this, I try to make, 2 or 3 different prototypes and figure out which one was the best quality, which one was the easiest to build, best use of materials, everything like that. And then I try to batch a lot of them out at once. I mean, that's, I don't know who it was saying that woodworking is a great trade. It is. And one of those very, very key aspects in making money in this trade is figuring out an item that you can make a lot of in a short amount of time and keep your quality high and your products low. So that'll definitely go into it. But yeah, I'm watching the video right now. It doesn't look too bad at all. I should be able to make a lot of them for you guys.
So the thing that I don't like about those Vivaldi boards is they charge a crap load of money, and you can make my things. So you can make little screened boxes, and you can even just put the screen over the hole, and it's sufficient. So this is, and so instead of using a Vivaldi board, I just use my inner cover and an extra box and one of these, and it's because I can make these for nothing. Well, not nothing, but way cheaper than I could buy a Vivaldi board for. And so even if you make something like this, like these are something that people might enjoy using as opposed to my background is cutting it out. But anyways.
Yeah, I can't see it at all.
The Vivaldi boards they're nice, but I think that they are a little over-engineered for what they should be myself.
Okay. Well, yeah, Steve, just I sent you that email. Just shoot it out to whoever you need to, and then you guys can just email me individually. That's probably the best way to go about it. Whoever has interest and whoever wants to reach out, we'll just communicate individually.
Stefan, there's a question about, are we doing mentors again? And when is that starting up?
Yeah, so we will do mentors. It's going to be a little tough this year because I don't know how to get people together. But we can, I don't know if Mark, can you like put a section in when you set that up, when people sign up, if they're looking for a mentor, and they can enter the information that's needed, that I can find them a mentor.
Yeah, that shouldn't be a problem. I think I can add all that content.
Yeah, and so we'll probably do it that way when people sign up, that we can just set them up. This year I will need help with mentors, because I am a little strapped with my available time. So if anybody wants to be a mentor, please be a mentor. So it should be more than just the 5 or 6 of us that do it every year. I'm just saying.
Yeah, pay it forward.
Yep.
That's right. We figured that if you were able to keep bees over the winter, you're a beekeeper, and you can tell other people how you did it. Make suggestions.
Yeah, and it's not that hard. I mean, it really, it's, you know, you get assigned somebody in your area, hopefully close by, maybe help them install a package, or, you know, doing a hive inspection, give them some tips and tricks on, you know, tools and equipment, and just be ready to answer any questions. You know, I get a lot of text messages, and I send out messages to my mentees about, hey, today's going to be a warm day. Go out and make sure your bees have water, or, you know, like during the winter, make sure they have food, or like Jim says, check your boxes and see if they're heavy. Just little things, you know, things that you would do out in your bee yard is all you have to recommend for those that you're helping out.
And Deborah is an amazing mentor. I'm a terrible one. I'm one of those that if you don't ask me any questions, I'm going to think everything's perfect. So, but seriously, it's usually just a few questions here and there. And then, you know, at first people are a little intimidated, but once they get going, it's just the questions here and there. And it's not, being a mentor is not as bad as people think it would be. So.
Hi, will we be able to buy bee packages this year?
So the club itself is not going to do a bee package order. If you want to order with Jim has worked with the Sacramento Bee Club. So if you want to work with them to order bees, you can do that. But there are a lot of people that will be selling bees in the club. And so if you're wanting localized bees, that would be a good option for you also. I know that I will be selling bees. Vicky and Bill will probably sell bees. Jim usually sells bees. And then Deborah, do you sell bees? Usually you do.
No, I haven't sold any bees, but I think Mr. Leonard Joy, he orders bees.
Yeah, that's all. We'll work on putting together a list and getting that out to everyone. And those sales, again, won't be through the club. They'll be directly through the members.
Okay, and so did everybody get the newsletter and see the information in there about the Sacramento Bee Club putting together their order? It looked like their cutoff was mid-February for delivery in end of March. They were charging $135 for a package, and they were coming out of a breeder in Woodland. They had 3 different types of queens available. Let's see if I have that information. Russian hybrid, and Italian hybrid, and Carniolans. And they don't have a date on when they'd get them, but they just said end of March. And so anyway, yeah, the Sacramento Bee Club had reached out to us and said they'd be okay with having Northern Nevada beekeepers join in their order. Of course, that was last fall. I don't know if they've already kind of reached how much, or, you know, the limit of how many they told them they'd probably order. I know that when we ordered a couple years ago, we put in a fixed quantity, and that's, you know, what they offered. And at one point, then they came back and they said that it had been a bad year for packages and they were going to have to cut our order back. So basically, we tried to get everybody in the club at least get one package. Then for those people that wanted several, we just couldn't get them from the supplier. So don't know what this season's looking like, though, with you know, so far a nice warm winter. We probably are going to have quite a few people with bees available. And so, like Mark said, we'll put out a list of folks in the club that have bees. And I definitely agree with Stefan that getting local bees is a big plus. You know, getting bees that have been bred down in the Sacramento Valley at, you know, 100 foot above sea level. There's just a night and day difference in, you know, the vegetation available that they're used to, et cetera, et cetera. So local bees are always the best way to go. Which makes catching a swarm just a fabulous way to get bees. It's free bees.
Yeah, so if you have equipment and you lost your bees over the winter, I would definitely leave out a single deep box with all that old comb in there and leave an entrance open. You'll probably get a swarm move in. Swarms love old equipment. And that's one of the things that Jim was talking about earlier, is that, you know, take that old honey or even that old wax moth comb that you're like, you throw that in a 10 frame box or a nucleus colony, and that is like gold to a to a beehive swarm. They will move in on that with no problem.
I agree. I got a swarm that way. Just, you know, I think I went away for the weekend and I came back and the bees had moved in. It's like, wow, that was easy, as they say. Okay, I see another question there in the chat room about whether we have any word about the wax dipping. So right now, no word on that. Well, I guess I said I would look into it and see when they're going to do it. I know there is a charge because they've got to heat up, you know, 700 pounds of wax or something. And they have big propane cylinders that fire up, you know, big fire under those things. So it's a big day when they get to do that, and hopefully they'll have some space for us to drop down with equipment.
Well, I just wanted to say thank you again, everyone. I gotta go.
Okay, Eric. Yeah.
Meeting everybody. Deborah, thank you so much again for bringing me on, and I really appreciate you guys.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for talking about it. Okay, so speaking of the wax dip, one of the things that I like to do is, you know, use some of the propolis I collect and dissolve it in alcohol, a little rubbing alcohol, and I'll coat my boxes with that. I find that it lasts about 3 years before I need to recoat them, but it gives a really nice natural finish. And once the alcohol evaporates, sometimes even before it's evaporated, bees are just landing on those boxes trying to chew off whatever propolis is on there. But having it dissolved in the alcohol, it'll actually sink into the wood grain and gives a nice natural waterproof coating. I've also tried regular beeswax and linseed oil. You have to make sure it's heated up well enough that your wax melts into the linseed oil. I didn't like that because it kind of left an oily feel. I like the propolis kind of sticky resin feel to my boxes. But I used it on a lot of stuff other than my bee boxes I was building. It went on the 4x4 post on my gazebo and my grape arbor, the handles of my wheelbarrow, old rake and shovel handles that were made of wood. All kinds of stuff you can use that for. So I always have a couple of jars sitting around that I'll just kind of coat on. Okay, well, anything else anybody wants to bring up? I'm about ready to go get a beer. I don't have any mead.
Speaking of food, Pam, do you have anything or any update on anything like, equipment or cool recipes? I so miss your baklava.
Oh, yeah. If a first meeting would have been baklava. I tried to get some recipes to Jim. I'm going to have to figure out how to do it a different way. I've got lots of things I can share, and we can put a couple of them in each newsletter. Did you get that?
Sure did. In fact,
Okay.
I'm really looking forward to your recipes there.
Okay.
And then also, for everybody who may be kind of new, Pam is the person that kind of takes care of all of our club equipment, the extractor, the knife, and a few other things. So she'll be the one that you want to get a hold of, when you get ready to extract some stuff. And in fact, what we could probably do, we could put together a list of the club equipment and put that in the newsletter too. So everybody has an idea of what's available.
I have that, Jim, so I'll send that to you through an email or a text.
Great. Okay, thanks.
Uh-huh.
On the note of Pam's amazing cooking, do we know when we're going to be able to go back in person?
No, we don't. Probably once everybody gets vaccinated. I'm assuming it'll be, mid-late summer. That's what I'm hoping for.
As of right now, the Washoe County's libraries are limiting stuff, if anything. So until they get something going as far as how many people can go, we need to either find a new venue because we've had some good turnout. I can, I'll kind of keep track of what Washoe County Library is doing because we had used the Sparks Library for the last many years, but don't know any more than that.
That's a good point because we did have a couple meetings out there at the Sparks Library where I think we actually exceeded the number of people that it said we could have in the room, which I think was 125 limit or something. It was standing room only.
Yeah, it could have very well.
So you're right.
Been.
That's
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
That's a limiting factor is when, we actually get access to a large room.
Yeah.
Okay, so I see people starting to kind of drop off. Oh, there's a question on whether we're having a class out at the Rail City nursery. Stefan?
Yeah, so Michael Hammersky and I are teaching a class on February 6th at Rail City Garden for the Beekeeping 101 or the basic beekeeping class. If anybody is interested in that, basically just going over the normal how to get bees, how to keep them alive for the first year, and then hopefully they'll join the club and learn how to take care of bees. So if anybody is interested in that, it's through the Eventbrite website. They call it Bees 101 at Rail City. So, and yeah, I don't have anything. One note here I saw on the text that's asking about the
Okay, I see
newsletter.
another question. How do we sign up for the newsletter? Everybody who's paid dues and has given Randy their email and sign up information, they're on a list, and I get the newsletter out to them. Okay, so the class out at Rail City, that is being advertised on Paul's radio show.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, because we haven't sent anything out in the club in regards to that. So I guess there are several other notifications besides the radio show. It's probably posted on the Rail City calendar and a few other things in.
Yeah, I haven't seen it on the Rail City's calendar, but it definitely, if you look, I mean, because I've been advertising it and stuff like that, it's pretty easy to find. Just look at beekeeping 101 classes in Reno, and it comes up with last year's and then this year's. It's pretty easy to find. So
okay.
Yeah, the
All right.
information is also on our Facebook page.
Okay, good. Okay, anything else before I call a timeout and say goodbye to everybody? Oh, I like that. Yeah. Okay, all right. Guess we'll talk to you all next month, if not before. All right. Goodbye.